Good morning, Fresno, coming to you live from the seedy underbelly of Blackstone Avenue at the offices of Right to Life of Central California. This is Right to Life Radio. I am John Girardi. Thank you so much for being with us. You can be listening to us on AM 1680 The Answer. You can also be watching us. Yes, we are just moving into the 21st century. You can be watching us live on Facebook Live. Just go to Right to Life of Central California's Facebook page, Right to Life, facebook.com/RightToLifeCA. If you want to also see me talking to you rather than just hear me talking to you. And tune in. You can watch the whole show on Facebook Live, facebook.com/RightToLifeCA. And Right to Life of Central California is the producing sponsor of this show, the organization of which I am the executive director. So check out righttolifeca.org. Twitter.com/RightToLifeCA to learn about all the great stuff that we are doing at Right to Life of Central California. We have a lot of great educational initiatives. If you want to book us to speak at your church, at your schools, for your youth groups, whatever it is, we provide a whole broad range of presentations on pro-life topics, ranging from whether it's fetal development, the history of abortion law in the United States, whether it's chastity talks for kids and youth, talks for adult groups, church groups, Bible groups, whatever you want, we can provide end-of-life issues, assisted suicide. Our goal is to serve our community. So get in touch with us if you want to know more about what we do. Again, righttolifeca.org, or just give us a call, 229-2229. Okay, we got a lot of show today. There is a lot of news that is honestly just not going to get reported in major news outlets, chiefly because Donald Trump had an interview, so that always produces a lot of sound and fury. So we're going to talk about some actually pretty big pro-life news that is happening right now in Congress. So, last night, the House Appropriations Committee is considering a big appropriations bill. And these are big, enormous bills that just get tons of crud thrown into them. All kinds of funding for all kinds of different things. And basically, the design of this bill is to make them so big and so full of important spending things that are kind of essential that it makes them veto-proof and vote-against-it-proof. Basically, it's got so much stuff in it that it's going to be impossible for President Trump to veto this thing. So what a number of pro-lifers in the House of Representatives are doing is stuffing this bill with some really great pro-life protections, really great pro-life legislation. And I want to talk with you guys about some of the stuff that's in here, because this is actually really big stuff. This is stuff that the pro-life movement needs to get accomplished. You know, at the very least, President Trump, his campaign promise, he made a number of campaign promises to do certain pro-life things, and we need to hold him accountable to those promises and take advantage of his time in the White House to make sure we reverse some of the pro-choice things that happened during the Obama administration and earlier. So, what is in this new big appropriations bill? One of the amendments included is the normal Hyde Amendment. Now, you've heard me talk about the Hyde Amendment before. The Hyde Amendment is probably one of the most important pieces of pro-life legislation ever. It's been attached to the federal budget every year for about 40 years, and it basically says that no federal dollars can directly fund abortion. So this is why none of the federal healthcare programs like Medicaid or Medicare, they cannot fund abortion directly. That's because of the Hyde Amendment. It only allows that funding for abortions in cases of rape or incest, which is an unfortunate aspect of the Hyde Amendment, but it's sort of the only way the Hyde Amendment ever gets passed is if we include those exceptions. As a result of the Hyde Amendment, a number of researchers have determined, because of how much funding it has cut off for abortion, there are probably about 2.5 million people who are alive in America today who would not be had the Hyde Amendment never sort of been adopted and continued to be consistently adopted by Congress every year. So the Hyde Amendment is a great and essential and really important thing. So that's included in this appropriations bill. the Conscience Protection Act. I've talked about this before, but this is a really important thing for Californians. So, California, in August of 2014, the California Department of Managed Healthcare introduced this regulation, and we've talked about this a number of times. It required, basically, California law requires every healthcare plan purchased and sold in this state to cover what's called essential services. What the California Department of Managed Healthcare did was through a regulation, not even through a law. This wasn't like passed by the California legislature. This wasn't signed by the governor. A bunch of unelected bureaucrats issued a regulation that redefined essential services, which every healthcare plan in California has to cover, to include elective abortion. So you heard that right. Essential services now includes elective abortion. Yes, those are antonyms. Now, this regulation was very clearly in violation of existing federal law. This federal law called the Weldon Amendment basically says that states may not discriminate against healthcare plans or providers based on a failure to provide abortion coverage. California was very clearly in violation of this. But California was violating this federal law at a time when the Obama administration was in power. And the Obama administration had no interest in enforcing that provision of federal law. And even the Trump administration doesn't seem too interested in doing so because it would involve this sort of nuclear option of cutting off all of California's Medicaid funding, which not even President Trump wants to do. The Conscience Protection Act, which is being passed by Congress, gives basically organizations like us, organizations like every church in this state that is pro-life, it gives us a remedy, it gives us a way to circumvent this California regulation. It allows us to sue the state of California in federal court, and it allows us to be exempted from this regulation that requires all of us to purchase insurance plans that cover abortion. So the Conscience Protection Act, this is a really essential piece of legislation for Californians, and I'm really enthused that this is moving forward through Congress. But there's more. There's more. There's more stuff in this appropriations bill. It also includes provisions to stop any federal funding for fetal tissue research from induced abortion. All right. Fetal tissue research from induced abortion. What does that mean? This came out of the whole David Daleiden story. Now, a lot of you might remember that back in the summer 2015, David Daleiden did these undercover sort of journalistic things where he was showing how he was getting undercover videos of Planned Parenthood executives talking about this practice of Planned Parenthood selling the body parts of aborted children either to researchers or to middlemen who would turn it around to researchers and making money off the enterprise. Now, if you earn a profit off of doing this, if you sell the body parts of an aborted child and you are making money off it, rather than just getting offset costs for storage and shipment and things like that, that is a crime. That is a federal crime, and it's a crime in the state of California. Planned Parenthood claims they never made any money off of it. There's a lot of sort of accounting fudging that seems to be taking place. There was a lot of evidence that Planned Parenthood executives viewed this as a money-making venture, including direct statements from certain Planned Parenthood executives that David Daleiden got, and direct statements to that effect from various middleman companies that would get the tissue from abortion clinics and sell it to researchers. So what this provision that's being added to the appropriations bill would do is it basically would just cut off any possibility of the, well, what it would do specifically is it would cut off any federal funding for research on fetal tissue that was procured from an abortion. So certainly the existing law should be able to regulate this. I don't know if it's doing enough, but what Congress is saying is, look, if this research is going to continue, the American taxpayer does not have to pay for it. So we are going to cut off any federal funding for research on fetal tissue that's obtained from an abortion. All right, so that's a big deal. Finally, I might save this for the rest of the break because there's more stuff in this appropriations bill. There's more good stuff in this appropriations bill. I just don't have time for it in this segment. But I think the main thing I want to impress upon you guys is that don't just go to Fox News, don't just go to CNN, don't just go to the Fresno Bee. There is a lot of really important news happening on the pro-life front, and that's why this radio show exists. You are literally and genuinely not going to hear any of this talk anywhere else on the radio in Fresno, anywhere on any other podcast around the country. This is the place you got to go if you want the best and the most up-to-date Right to Life news. I know I'm sounding really braggy, like I'm tooting my own horn, but this is what we offer for you guys. Anyway, if you want to join in, call us at 442-1680. This is Right to Life Radio with John Girardi on AM 1680 The Answer. Go to Facebook. Check us out on Facebook Live, facebook.com/RightToLifeCA. We'll be back after the break. Okay, thank you. We are live still on Facebook. Okay. Hello, Facebook Live land. Oh, Brian, by the way, we're broadcasting this on Facebook Live, so if you hear me talking during the breaks, I'm talking to the world, not just to you. So, hello. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, don't feel too special. Hello, Facebook Live land. So we are doing this experiment this week with Facebook Live and just trying to Facebook Liven up every episode of the radio show. So we will have these awkward pauses in the breaks where I'll have to, make sure I'm on my best behavior and not screwing anything up. So, but yeah, this is a really important bill. I think a lot of good stuff can come out of this, and it's structured. It's really nice because it's structured in a way that I don't think President Trump would be inclined to veto it, but I don't think there's any way he could because there's all this really essential stuff in it. So I should probably save this for the actual radio show, don't you think, Producer Raphael? All right. We also have Raphael Rodarte, our educational coordinator, who's running the board. Raphael was wrestling with our phones and with Facebook Live to try to get this stream up and running for you. So you can all give a big shout out and thank you to Raphael for doing that. Also, a big shout out to the Clovis Republican Women group, for who invited me to speak for them tonight. So all you Clovis Republican women out there, so my mom, good. Hope you all are watching and enjoying the Facebook live stream. Producer Brian, feel free to rudely interrupt me and let me know when we're like a minute out or whatever. Roger that. Roger Dodger. The real challenge during this portion is to make sure I don't curse or anything, as Raphael has reminded me repeatedly. Just don't curse. This whole operation will fall apart. If you see the stream abruptly cut out, you'll know what's happened. It's because Raphael had to pull the plug on his wild card host. This is going to be the only talk radio show in America not talking about Donald Trump today. like, I guess we've talked about him in a very ancillary way, or is that even the right adjective? In a very tangential way. There we go. 1 minute out. Thank you, Producer Brian. All righty. Okay. All right, folks, we should be back in about 30 seconds to the show. Oh, we usually... Okay. For those of you watching in Facebook Live land, usually on the radio, we have a nice musical bumper. We have not figured out how to get you to listen to that yet, so please... ignore ignore my commentary on the song that we'll be playing in the next 10 seconds. All right, standing by. This is Miss Aretha Franklin with Think. The best bumper music in the entire Fresno radio market. This is John Girardi on Right to Life Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, Right to Life Essential California is the organization you need if you want any pro-life education or presentations at your church, at your school, at your whatever, your civic organization. righttolifeca.org, twitter.com/righttolifeca, and watch us live. You can watch this. This is not just a radio show. You can also spend time goofing off on your phone or computer. Go to facebook.com/righttolifeca to watch the Facebook live stream of our show. We were talking in the last segment about something that no one else in Talk Radio Land is going to be talking about. There's a lot of pro-life activity that's happening right now in Congress. Specifically, now we'll talk about healthcare later. That's another big and important issue that relates to the pro-life movement. That is some non-activity that is not happening right now, unfortunately. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But I wanted to keep going on about this big appropriations bill that is right now before the Labor Health. Well, I guess it's right now before the Appropriations Committee. And basically this is some big, massive federal spending bill. You know, libertarians and fiscal conservatives, insert your gripes here. But this bill is being filled with a number of really good pro-life provisions. We've been talking about it. The insertion of the Hyde Amendment, which cuts off federal funding, any direct federal funding through federal health care programs for abortion. It's been passed every year for 40 years. I'm glad it's being passed again this year. The Conscience Protection Act, which will prevent the state of California from continuing to insist that every health care plan in this state cover abortion. I really hope that this gets passed. This is a really important thing for California. Stopping federal funding on tissue procured from aborted babies. This is a really good thing, and this is another sort of good outcome from the whole David DeLeiden investigations. But there was some more stuff in the bill that I didn't get to in the last segment, so here we go. One of the other provisions in this bill is it prohibits abortion providers like Planned Parenthood from receiving any funding made available through the Labor, Health, and Human Services Appropriations Bill. So, again, this is a big appropriations bill. It's got a lot of money for a lot of different causes. What this does, basically, it prevents any of that money through this stream, prevents any of that money from going to Planned Parenthood. Okay, and Planned Parenthood gets a lot of different federal money from a lot of different avenues. It gets most of its money, the vast bulk of esse money, it gets from reimbursements from Medicaid. Okay, and that's usually for non-abortion services, but they get about $400 million from the federal government through the Medicaid program. Okay, and you might be saying, well, it's for non-abortion services, so why should we care? Well, the non-abortion services that Planned Parenthood provides are not real drivers of revenue. Abortion's the real driver of revenue. Abortion is the most profitable thing that Planned Parenthood does. So basically what's happening is Planned Parenthood has an annual revenue of about $1 billion. And over $400 million of that comes from Medicaid reimbursements for non-abortion services. So what's happening is basically all of the less profitable things that Planned Parenthood does, that's getting bankrolled by the taxpayer. That frees up all of their resources to focus on their biggest moneymaker, which is abortion, which is outside of government funding and donations. Abortion is Planned Parenthood's single biggest driver of donations. It is their reason for existing. Abortion is why Planned Parenthood exists. It is essential to their mission. They are an abortion provider. The non-abortion services they provide are fairly limited. They are not big drivers of revenue because it's usually just it's birth control, it's very limited forms of cancer screenings. but they don't provide a very broad array of services. Okay? Now, Planned Parenthood gets most of its funding from Medicaid, but it gets funding from a number of other sources, one of which is called Title X. Title X is basically money that's set aside for different kinds of family planning services. It goes to states, and then states give it to various different kinds of entities. Now, you saw late in the Obama administration attempts by different states to give that money to organizations other than Planned Parenthood. Try to give that money to federally qualified health centers, which are these health centers that actually have a pretty broad array of services. They're available to lower-income persons, and most of their services are low cost or no cost. So they were trying to give this money to federally qualified health services, but the Obama administration issued these really punitive regulations basically saying, we will cut off all of your Medicaid funding if you try to give that money to federally qualified health centers and not to Planned Parenthood. So the Obama administration was holding these states hostage, particularly like Indiana tried to do this when Mike Pence was the governor, and basically the Obama administration just held them hostage. So if you cut off money that is allocated to you for you to spend, if you cut off any money from Planned Parenthood through Title X, we'll take away all of your Medicaid funding. So these states were just held hostage by the Obama administration if they wanted to cut off funding from Planned Parenthood. Well, that is changing now. President Trump has already signed a bill basically cutting off Title X funding, allowing states basically to cut off Title X funding towards Planned Parenthood if they want. Now, in this new appropriations bill bars funding to Title X, which is a significant funding stream for Planned Parenthood, the largest abortion chain in America. The program was established in 1970 to provide family planning for low-income individuals, but the authorization lapsed 30 years ago. Basically, this is to eliminate Title X as a whole. Basically, this is Congress saying the federal government doesn't need to be in the business of paying for abortion, paying for birth control. This is not the appropriate role. So basically, this is a 180-degree shift from what we've seen not only in the Obama administration, but even from previous allegedly Republican pro-life administrations, where this stuff kept getting sort of funded as this dull sort of, well, we need to fund birth control, we need to fund abortifacient birth control, we need to have some sort of funding for reproductive health. This sort of makes it go away. So that's another really good aspect of this bill that's before the House of Representatives right now. So this is just fantastic. This bill is going to do a number of really great things for the pro-life cause. It's going to cut off tons of money from Planned Parenthood. It's going to cut off tons of federal dollars that are being spent on abortion and birth control. It's going to allow us in California to purchase and sell healthcare plans that allow conscientious objectors to abortion to, have some actual choice and freedom. And it's going to cut off any federal money for research on fetal tissue procured from abortion. This is a really significant legislative development, and if President Trump signs this, it will be a really great accomplishment for his presidency to do something to really help protect innocent unborn life. We'll be right back after the break here on Right to Life Radio. Don't change that dial, Fresno. Oh, clear. Okay. Gosh, that was a really corny radio sign-off. Hey, Ralph, is there another set of headphones we can get for our guest? We have a mystery guest watching the show. Don't tell anyone. So good. So far, so good. Okay. I'm constantly nervous that I'm just producing a terrible radio show. Fortunately, the one thing they teach you how to do in law school is talk. So I'm good at stalling. I'm good at talking. And actually, I don't know. Hey, Ralph, Where's the sheet with the Oh. Oh, it's over there. Okay. Okay. All right. She's not hearing any of the music or anything. So. Aretha Franklin? Yeah. Yes. I get to choose all my own bumper music, so and they don't seem to have too many rules about like it's like just don't play it for more than a minute. So, okay. When is this segment supposed to end? Segment 3. We're back at 34, and then and then the segment ends at 42. Okay. For all you Facebook Live people, if you want to plan out your bathroom breaks, this this segment will start up again at 9:34 and then end at 9:42. I'm also planning out my eventual bathroom. No, I'm not. I've seen some radio hosts actually like go to the bathroom during. I mean, I guess I understand if you've got like a 3-hour radio show, you got to do what you got to do. But like, the worst thing, we're talking bathroom breaks here on Right to Life Radio. The worst thing, when I took the bar exam, both times, when I took it in Massachusetts and when I took it in California, there were people like you only have like these 3-hour segments when you're taking the bar, when you're sitting for the bar exam. So it's like 2 3-hour segments for either 2 straight days or 3 straight days in California. And you got a lot of work to get done and only 3 hours to do it. And like I spent all 180 minutes like scribbling. Thank you, Producer Brian. Producer Brian, let me know I have 1 minute. And there are people, they're adults going to the bathroom in the middle. It's like, are you a kindergartner? Like, this is like the most important exam of your life, and you're getting up in the middle to go to the bathroom? Like, go before. Like, are you crazy? You don't have much time. No, there was way too many people for it to be that. All right. Producer Raphael was suggesting bladder problems, but gosh, the stuff we talk about, boy, allowing the commercial breaks to be streamed was clearly a poor decision. All right. We'll be back in 10 seconds here, folks. This is Sam Cooke. The best music in Fresno on the radio. Get out of here with anyone else, and it's because we're allowed to like play the lyrics of songs. So that was Sam Cooke with Bring It On Home here on Right to Life Radio. Thank you so much for joining in, folks. As we've got a lot of news on the docket. So we talked all about what's going on in Congress. By the way, if you want to watch us rather than just listen to us on the radio, all you radio listeners, you can go to facebook.com/righttolifeca. And you can watch the Facebook live stream. So I'd really encourage you to do that. It's a lot of fun. You get to hear what we're talking about in the commercial breaks, which is often silly and but never dull. I can assure you of that. So we've got a good. We're going to go a little lighter. We've got a good story coming out of. Let's see. This is a story coming out of London. This is not the Charlie Gard story, which we've talked about at length. And there's actually some good developments on Charlie Gard from the U.S. side, that Congress has issued a bill to make him a special bill, basically to make him and his parents temporary legal residents of the United States, so that he can get the treatment he needs. This is the little boy in England who has a very bad disease, and the hospitals in England, which are run by the government, will not provide him with the experimental treatment that could potentially help him. It's sort of a long shot, but basically it's a question of who has the right to make these decisions for children. Is it parents or is it the government? And unfortunately, it seems very much in England that the government is making that choice. But this is a different story out of England. So here we go. This is from lifenews.com, one of our favorite sources for material to talk about on Right to Life Radio. When Shona Jeffries' water broke 22 weeks into her pregnancy, she was told that her twin babies were too young to survive. Doctors at Derwent Valley Hospital in Kent, England, I hope that I pronounced that correctly, said they would not attempt to save the babies' lives when they were born. However, the twins unexpectedly stayed in the womb another few days, giving doctors hope that they could be saved, the Sun reports. Twins Dolly and Albert, well, those are great names, Dolly and Albert, were born after just 23 weeks in the womb in November. But they now are doing well at home with their family. They are definitely our two little miracles, their mother said, with probably a much more British accent than that. Jeffrey said she did not have any problem with her pregnancy prior to 22 weeks. When her water broke at 22 weeks and 6 days, she said she and her partner, Darren Terrell, come on, guys, get married. Come on, you're having twins here. Just put a ring on it. Come on. If you like it, put a ring on it. They feared that their twins would die. Doctors confirmed as much at the hospital, saying the twins were too young to survive if they arrived that day, but the twins stayed in the womb longer than expected. Now, here's the thing to note. In England, unlike the United States, and I learned this from this article, England basically has a 23-week limit on legal abortion. After the 23rd week after pregnancy, you can't have an abortion. These kids were born just before that time limit. So it would have been legal to abort these kids in the United Kingdom. In America, unfortunately, abortion is legal for all 40 weeks for essentially any reason. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I think we've discussed this on Right to Life Radio. So these are children who it would have been legal to abort, and now, I mean, we'll put the article up on the podcast description and on Facebook.com/RightToLifeCA, and so you can read the article. But I'm looking at a picture of these two little babies, and they're now healthy, happy little human beings, and yeah, these kids could have been aborted, and this brings up sort of a larger point about abortion. One of the more consistent arguments you hear in favor of abortion, some people will say, well, I think before viability should be the point at which we have a different sort of standard of whether or not human lives in the womb are valuable. If you're a human life in the womb and you're before the point of viability, which is the point at which you can survive outside of the womb, then your life is less valuable. And even the Supreme Court, in its jurisprudence in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which is sort of the controlling law right now. It's not so much Roe v. Wade anymore. Now it's Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which was a decision from 1992. Planned Parenthood versus Casey gives states some leeway to regulate abortion prior to viability, more so than after viability. Okay? Here's the problem with that standard, though. First of all, viability doesn't have anything to do with the internal characteristics of the unborn child. It doesn't have anything to do with their brain development, or certainly not with any meaningful characteristics of the unborn child. It has something to do with like lung capacity and heartbeat and things like that. But it doesn't have anything to do with brain activity. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that the child is alive or not. A child right now, basically, the point of viability is around 23 weeks. These twins were basically pushing the limits of when children can survive outside the womb. There's no real meaningful moral difference between a kid at 21 weeks and 24 weeks. It's still the same biological organism, still has the same DNA. They're both alive. It's just that one can now survive outside of the womb. The other stupid thing about the viability argument is that viability is a standard that changes. It changes with the advancements in technology. So there are babies being born today at 25 weeks post-conception. There are probably children in the NICU unit right now at Valley Children's Hospital who were born 26 weeks post-conception who, 30 years ago, they would have been pre-viability. They probably would have died. And the statistics of the percentages of babies we're able to save earlier and earlier and earlier, I mean, that's constantly increasing, and that's constantly getting better as technology advances. So the idea that we're going to tie human dignity to a standard that has nothing to do with humans, but just everything to do with our technological progress, it's foolhardy. It makes no sense. It's again, what determines your value as a human being? Is it whether or not there were some really great scientists who developed some technology that allows you to survive outside the womb? No. And furthermore, even if you're going to say like scientific viability is the determining fact, I wasn't able to survive on my own until I was about 27 years old, for God's sake. Like, the idea that the fact that you are dependent on people, to be human is to be dependent. That is what it means to be human. I am dependent on farmers. I am dependent upon people who built my house. I am constantly dependent on others. Man is a political animal. We are designed to live in communities with each other. We rely on each other. We depend on each other. We love each other. The fact that unborn children are dependent on their parents, pre-viability, post-viability, whatever, does not make them less of a person. So kudos to these twins from England born at 23 weeks. What a wonderful story, and God bless the parents. Get married, you parents, for God's sake. We'll be back on Right to Life Radio here on AM 1680 The Answer. Don't go away. All clear. The best parts of the show are when I get producer Raphael to almost get on the microphone, him laughing. So, Holly Girardi, a totally unbiased listener to the show, Holly Girardi, who is related to me by marriage. The woman to whom I became related by marriage on my wedding day says that was a great segment. So you should listen to her. She knows what she's talking about. She does not have any sort of stake in this, even a financial stake. I guess she kind of does, because this is part of my job. So, and a shout out to Madeline Girardi and Sophia Girardi, who I'm sure are watching this right now. Oh, wait, actually, Maddie's with Grandma right now. Okay, never mind. There's no way my mom is watching this on Facebook. Even my own mother. The Republican women. I know there are a few Republican women watching this, but I know my mom is not one of them. Yeah, my mom was the president of the Fresno County and City Republican Women Organization for the last 2 years. Oh, even Holly isn't watching. Oh, the girls are not watching. They've gone to sleep. Okay, they are either gone or asleep. So last night, Facebook Land was a eventful night in the Girardi household as we attempted to get Madeline, our 2.5-year-old, and Sophia, our 11-month-old, to sleep in the same room. This did not go well. Our 2.5-year-old has this tendency of talking and never shutting up. So either we would put the little one to sleep, she's asleep, and then, or no, how did we do it? Yeah, we put the little one down to sleep, and then we try to put Madeline in there for her to go to sleep, but she likes to just sit in her bed talking to herself for like an hour and a half and just kept talking and talking and talking and woke up the 11-month-old. So it was a whole thing. It was just a situation. So there was lots of crying. Also, our children cried a lot. So it was just bad. No one slept. I've been up since like 4 because I couldn't fall asleep. So it's okay. It's not like I have a lot of work today. So. All right. Thank you, Producer Brian. 1 minute. Producer Brian bringing me back down to earth. Let's see. Was there some of the buzz during the first segment, Ralph? They can't hear it? Only I can. Oh, okay. Well, if only I can hear it, then I don't care. So, yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah. Okay. As long as the radio people can't hear the buzz, that's fine. Okay, thank you. This is Otis Redding singing These Arms of Mine. Only the most romantic tunes here on Right to Life Radio. I got to be careful to make sure this music isn't too pro-life. Anyway, back from the break. Join us on Facebook.com/RightToLifeCA if you want to watch the Facebook live stream of the show. You get to hear all of the inane conversation during the commercial breaks. Who can resist that? Twitter, if you want to go to Right to Life Central California's website, righttolifeca.org. Again, Right to Life is the premier Right to Life education and advocacy organization in Fresno and Madera counties. If you want to learn more or if you want to donate, I'd really encourage, there's a big red donate button in the top right corner of our website. Go to righttolifeca.org. Give that donate button. If you like this show and you feel like you learned something from it, go to righttolifeca.org and click that donate button. Maybe throw me $10. Come on. Put some food on my family's table, why don't you? Anyway, I'm saying all this with a smile and a joke. If you would like to donate to support our cause, I think we do a lot of really good work at Right to Life of Central California, and I want to do a lot more good work, and we will be talking about that over the next several weeks. All of the great stuff we're doing at Right to Life. The next story I wanted to give for you, to think I talk for a living. There's a report out. There's a good article from The Federalist, which who produces The Federalist? I think this is the Heritage Foundation produces The Federalist. The title of it is Planned Parenthood, a safe, judgment-free place for underage sex traffickers. So, we went a little light in the last segment, so now we got to bring this crashing down to earth. So, there are a number of reasons not to give money to Planned Parenthood. First, the fact that they primarily do abortion. They're an abortion business. That's the reason they exist. And federal taxpayer dollars don't need to fund that. Next, their involvement in this whole scandal involving the procurement of fetal tissue, translation, selling the body parts of babies they abort. That whole scandal, which had a full congressional investigation, and Congress recommended 13 different criminal charges against different Planned Parenthood affiliates and other sort of middlemen, traffickers in fetal tissue throughout the country. There have been a number of stories in the past about different investigations people did showing that Planned Parenthood has a pretty bad track record when it comes to reporting incidents of statutory rape. This was what Lila Rose, the great pro-life activist from who runs Live Action, this was what made her sort of a national figure, was she would go into Planned Parenthood clinics posing as a 13-year-old with a 21-year-old boyfriend, saying she's pregnant, and Planned Parenthood clinic workers would not report the statutory rape. So this article is basically a follow-up investigation done by Live Action, revealing that Planned Parenthood consistently failed to report incidents of possible sex abuse and train directors how to spot undercover journalists rather than how to spot sex traffickers. So, Richmond, Virginia. After a pimp informs a Planned Parenthood, I think this is not an actual pimp, an undercover investigator posing as a pimp. After the pimp informs a Planned Parenthood staffer that he runs a prostitution ring, which in this day and age, sex trafficking is this real emerging enormous problem in the United States. It's basically the modern form of slavery. And that's what's happening. These pimps are getting girls. They're basically completely under the control of these pimps. They're being trafficked in largely from other countries. And it's this enormous criminal problem throughout the United States. So anyone who hears something about, hey, I'm a pimp, I got these girls working for me, some of them need to get birth control and abortions, that should set up, if you are a responsible healthcare organization, that should set off every red flag you can possibly have, okay? Sex trafficking is this enormous problem in the United States. And if someone comes in saying he's a pimp, you should start calling 911 that second. So here we go. After the pimp informs this is in Richmond, Virginia. After the pimp informs a Planned Parenthood staffer that he runs a prostitution ring, the staffer ensures him that Planned Parenthood is the right place for him to be. We see people this is a quote from the Planned Parenthood employee. We see people from every walk of life. So for a while, we were treating all the girls at Paper Moon, a local strip club, and various places around town. So no judgment, no sharing of information. The pimp reveals more. Now, the more complicated part of it is some of the girls, they're around 14 or 15, and some of the girls are from out of state and out of country. Now, this is this is the definition of sex trafficking. You're getting girls from out of state, out of the country, 14, 15 years old. These are federal crimes now because you're crossing state lines and national borders. At this point, the Planned Parenthood employee begins coaching the man on the process of getting his sex slaves through the legal and medical systems without getting caught. This is a quote from the employee. We can give them the same information. The only thing that requires a legal guardian is abortion. I mean, you can get birth control testing like anything without a parent. The only thing that requires someone over 18, if they're a minor, is an abortion. Now, this is because in Virginia, they have stricter laws about parental notification or parental consent, that for a minor to get an abortion, there needs to be parental notification or parental consent. California does not have that protection. So these 14 or 15-year-old girls, they wouldn't even need a legal guardian. Anyway, I will continue with the quote from the Planned Parenthood worker. But there's also ways like judicial bypass that we can get around that if you guys ever need. So this guy is telling the Planned Parenthood worker, hey, I'm a sex trafficker. I have sex slaves. Help me cover up what's happening with abortion and birth control. The Planned Parenthood executive is like, oh, no judgment here. This is why this organization is evil. And this is not the only place where this has happened. Live Action has done surveys, phone surveys, talking about, reporting incidents of statutory rape at Planned Parenthood clinics all over the place. They have another story like this from the Bronx. They have stories there are places doing this throughout the country. This is just the places we're finding and seeing. Don't give Congress, don't give this organization money. Don't give them my money. Don't give them your money. We'll be back on Right to Life Radio right after the break with our closing thoughts. Thank you. I really did not need to add that with our closing thoughts. That was idiotic. All right. I was doing so well. This is such an insane story, though. God. They are just... But yeah. Yeah. This is clearly not their first time. The story from the Bronx. As in Richmond, the pimp tells Planned Parenthood staffer that he's a trafficker in girls as young as 14. He is then informed Planned Parenthood's policy of silence. Like I said, everything is confidential, the employee said. They don't have to tell anybody what it is that they do when they're making the appointment. See, this is this new weird sort of liberal thing. So, this is not really a right to life issue necessarily, but I think it kind of is. So, on the one hand, people are very concerned about sex trafficking, as they should be. Totally awful thing. On the other hand, though, there's a certain strain of liberalism that's this very consequentialist sort of moral mindset that as long as you're doing something that everyone's a willing participant, it's fine. So there are a bunch of liberals who refuse to call prostitutes, and they'll say they're sex workers. and we should respect their autonomy as sex workers. As if, like, anyone, like, grows up dreaming, I want to be... 30 seconds, thanks. Other than, I guess, someone who saw a pretty woman and was really naive. Anyway, God. Anyway, it's bizarre. Apparently Planned Parenthood is on the side of not caring about prostitution and the obvious sex slavery that's involved. Anyway, we'll get back to the show in just a second. Thank you. Thank you, Producer Brian, for keeping me up to speed. This is the Old Italian Man segment. For those of you watching on Facebook Live, we're playing the theme from The Godfather right now over the radio. Every week on Right to Life Radio, the last segment is the Old Italian Man segment, where we play some classic song sung by an old Italian man. This is just composed and performed by various old Italian men. This is the theme from The Godfather, called The Godfather Waltz. The greatest movie ever made. Unquestionably, indisputably, indubitably. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining us on Right to Life Radio. If you want to hear more about that last story we were talking about, the Planned Parenthood thing, we will have the link to that article in the podcast description. And yes, this show is available as a podcast. Go to iTunes and search for Right to Life Radio or Life Report, and there we are, Right to Life Radio. And we do this show every week, an hour a week. Share it with your friends, share it with your enemies. We just want to get the word out about what we do here at Right to Life of Central California. Again, this is a production of Right to Life of Central California. We're the leading pro-life education and advocacy organization in Fresno and Madera counties. If you want to learn more about us, go to our website, righttolifeca.org. Click that donate button on the top right. If you want us to come to your church, your school, your civic organization, your youth group, your Bible study, to let you know more about what's happening on the abortion question, the history of abortion, the constitution of abortion as a religious question, fetal development, stuff for kids, stuff for adults, we can educate you. We can educate your congregation, your organization about abortion and what is happening around our country and around our state. State legislative stuff. No one talks about that. So thank you so much for tuning in to Right to Life Radio, and I will see you next week, same time, same station. God bless, everyone.